Hey everybody, Jason Sorrell here, Creative Valley Studios, Jason's Lowbrow Art. I'm putting a little recording together here of my process, and I'll have to beg your indulgence if you're watching this to see, this drawing that I've just finished as it comes to life. Um, I don't have a Wacom Cintiq yet. I do have a Patreon account where that's one of the goals is to have enough funds to get a Wacom Cintiq. It's about $1,800, and it's not a high priority on my list of things I'm doing right now in my life. I use traditional materials and I get by just fine, but for things like this, it would be convenient, and they're just cool. So if you want to support me on that, go check me out. There'll be a link to the Patreon account at the end. But anyways, I'm doing a drawing. This is for the Pancakes and Booze show on May 6th. I'm talking kind of quick because right now you're staring at a blank screen, and that's, I tend to go off on tangents and everything else, and just extends the amount of time that you are looking at that blank black screen right now. So enjoy. Maybe I'll put some artwork or anything, something in here, like right here, some artwork for you to look at. I don't know. But anywho, um, so I'm getting ready for the Pancakes and Booze show. I'll have three pieces at least. They'll be on these boards that are 2 feet by 4 feet, but I'm doing these drawings, and I actually want to transfer the drawing to the board, not just paint on the board the particular image. I want to have the drawing itself also for me to do different things with. So I'm going to show you my process. This is basically what I do when creating a tattoo or something for a graphic design or something of that nature, and just kind of show you what I do. So I'm using an 11 by 14-inch Bristol board. This is what we have a picture of right here. And again, you'll have to indulge me on the quality of the images and everything else. This is using a 6/8 pencil. So had I scanned the Bristol board in, because of the lightness of the line, which benefits me when doing a sketch, because then I can erase it pretty easily and be left with only the micron ink line afterwards. But during the actual creation process, it leaves a very light line. And that's intentional, but my scanner will wash that completely out when I go to scan it in. So we're taking pictures of it with my cell phone. But I have here a Bristol board with a piece or with a line right down the center. The reason for this is because I'm drawing a mermaid sitting on an anchor with a banner overhead. So the anchor is a symmetrical object. So I want to be able to center the object and do something with the symmetry, to make sure it is symmetrical and it looks symmetrical. And I'll be talking about that here. Let's go ahead and get into that right now. So the line, what that does, it allows me to draw one side of the design, one side of the curve of the anchor. And, given that I'm, going for an image that's basically 2 feet by 4 feet or 1 by 2, the scale, then that means that the widest point of this design can be no more than 7 inches on this particular piece of paper. So I had a curve already measured out to 7 inches, so I kind of knew what I was going on there, but you didn't get to see that step. So I have here 1/2 of an anchor, and what I've done then is traced that 1/2 of an anchor in the 6H graphite, the pencil. Now I could have went to a black ivory, and that actually would be normally what I would do for a transfer of this sort. Would be something with a very soft, very dark graphite, because it was just easier to transfer to the Bristol board like that. But I'm using a 6H, and it worked out just fine. So we end up with what is relatively a symmetrical anchor shape. So that's this is the result of that transfer, is making sure that the measurements kind of even and kind of proportionate and what have you. Now I start to sketch out my mermaid. And this is typical of me, sketching anything out. I don't know if you've taken figure drawing, or if you've read any, books on drawing the human figure or what have you. There's a very standard practice as far as using different shapes to define certain forms on the body. I have a very specific shape that I use for the shoulders to rib cage portion, and hips, actually the hip cradle, in my images. But this is something that I just sketch out really lightly. Get an idea of where I want things and to position things. Also, I'm looking at various references. So I have a lot of tattoo designs of anchors. I've got a lot of, mermaid tattoo designs I'm looking at. I've got actual pictures of, of different women who are seated in the manner that I want them seated, sort of, because, I kind of make some adjustments. It wasn't perfect. I did use my model, which I mentioned in another video. I have a little model that I think I paid too much money for. But I did use the model as well to kind of help figure things out. So definitely when you're doing taking on a design project, have references, have tons of references, because the more material you can look at, the easier it is for you to solve the various problems with proportion or positioning and things like that, as you go along. So sketch the mermaid. And now I'm putting in the rest of the anchor. Just kind of, and this right here, even though it is a symmetrical object, I kind of eyeballed it and everything. So because it's pretty straightforward. It's and I started playing around with different design elements also in the background. I wanted to throw in a little rope there, have a little bit more going on than just an anchor and a mermaid, and kind of figure things out as far as the anchor design as well. I'm starting to play with things and defining the mermaid a little bit more. Here we add some more definition to the mermaid. Now I had a good idea. I had sketches also of the mermaid that I wanted to do. So I had already kind of an idea where I was going with this. So so if you're wondering, sometimes I do just sit down and draw something on a Bristol board or what have you. More often than not, I have a sketchbook that I carry around with me all over the place. I'm drawing in it all the time. Something that it's something that I can refer to later, and it's sometimes they're finished pieces. I get finished drawings happen in the sketchbook. Sometimes there's nothing but sketches, depending on what I've got going on. But for this particular mermaid, I had several sketches available that of ideas I wanted to have, different elements I wanted to have in place on the mermaid itself, things I wanted to include. So that made things easier also to have a plan going into this. So here we are. We're starting to add the banner into the design. I'm starting to play with the idea of the size and the look of the text. I want it to be very tattoo-ish. I decided to go make the banner while symmetrical, also asymmetrical. I don't know, just a design element. I also started working on the rope here in the background to kind of draw the eye into this focal point of the mermaid itself. Started also adjusting the design on the anchor just to see what I could do with it. And here we are starting to kind of finish it out. Now I've reached a point where I'm starting to make final decisions as to what the sketch is going to be. So I'm taking lines that were roughed out before. Now I'm going, this is the line that I'm going to use. And by the way I define that particular line is I make it darker than the other lines. So this is the line I'm going to use. This is what I'm going to do. We start to get a little bit more expression on our face. Start to define the hair. I think we're working out the scales here. By the way, I should have mentioned this a couple of slides ago, I guess, when I started working the scales. This is basically, so if you saw, it's a cross hatching basically. So diagonals one way and the diagonals the other way, and then I use those diagonals to define the scales. And this is how you achieve proportion in the scales. This is how they get larger at one point, then smaller at another point. Just a little tip there for those of you who might be doing scales. Now we reach I've worked out all the problems in the sketch. I'm happy with where I'm at. I've defined the lines that I want to actually use, and now I'm going through and actually going with a micron and inking out those lines. So it becomes much easier to see, obviously, the different things that we have going on. And I never worry about the line weight at this point. I just want to get the line down because I'm going to go back through with the micron and I'm going to redefine the line weight to give it a little bit more visual interest. So here we are reaching a point where I've gone through and have actually added all those line weights. What I do typically is I like a bolder line on the exterior of the design and leave the finer lines on the interior. I also like my lines to taper as they reach connections, that they go around a curve. I like the line to be thicker. As they reach a terminus, I like the line to taper. So this is just something. This is a conscious effort. It's not just a matter of outlining various objects, although in some cases, like the rope, that is exactly what happened. But there's actually a conscious decision being made. So I'm going to taper this line. I'm going to make this curve thicker. I'm going to reduce this. So there's a little bit of thinking, a little bit of a process to this. Now this is just the ink laid out, and here I've gone through and now I've erased all the pencil. So we have now a much cleaner final version of the design. So that is, and here of course now we have the final version. So this is now the design's been scanned in. I've cleaned it up digitally, and now I have the finished piece. So that's my process. That's how I get from point A to point B. If I were doing something with this, as far as the tattoo is concerned, this is probably where I would stop. I would probably do maybe some prints of this, smaller prints of this, maybe do some color tests, just color pencils or whatever, colored out to show the client something that I've got, as far as I'm thinking with color. As far as merchandising, as far as stickers and things like that, what I'll do is I would scan this in. I would do a cell shading, sorry, cell shading and cell coloring of the image. And that would be then turned into whatever t-shirt stickers, whatever whatever we got going on. Um, this piece will also, like I mentioned, will be transferred onto a board, and there'll be a painting of it. So yeah, that's pretty much my process. Thanks for checking out my video. I'm sure I'll be doing more of these in the future. Hopefully, I'll find a better way to get the images across so that you can see them a little bit easier. But that's where we're at with the Don't Be Salty Mermaid. Thanks for checking me out. I'm out.